Hello chess friends and welcome to Qxd2 chess channel and welcome back to our Slav Defense series. So in this series we're covering this very nice opening from white's and from black's perspective, and today we're continuing with the Slav Defense and the so-called Schlechter variation. We have talked about the Schlechter variation. The Schlechter variation is the sideline of the 3-knight variation of the Slav Defense, so when black is playing, of course, first the move g6 and then bishop to g7. So in order to get a better understanding of this particular video, please also check out my other Slav Defense video, especially of course the Schlechter variation video. So what to do when your opponent is playing fianchettos? One of the best ways is to create, of course, an early flank attack with h4 h5. We have seen in many different ideas in chess, for instance in Yugoslav attack against the Dragon Sicilian. So basically when black is playing sort of a fianchetto, then sometimes it's a great idea to create really an early flank attack. I found really a great game in such structures. It's a game played by Garry Kasparov against Jan Nepomniachtchi. It's really wild. Two sharp attackers are facing each other in this great opening. And I've had the discussion recently with one of my chess friends. He mentioned to me that this Schlechter variation is sort of a static opening, and I didn't agree with him, because in my opinion the Schlechter variation is a dynamic opening, although it's a seemingly static opening in the beginning. But there are always these Grunfeld ideas. When we play fianchetto, then there are Grunfeld ideas with the move c5. Well, of course we see also now in this game h4 h5, so already the game is dynamic. We have also central pawn breakers here with potential c4 e4 moves. So of course black can expand on the queen side with b5 a5. So I think there are attacking opportunities for white and for black. So as I said, I didn't agree with my friend. I wanted to show him also this game, because you see now how wild the Schlechter variation can become, because we have really, as I said, two sharp attackers. And especially I wanted to see how Jan Nepomniachtchi will handle here Garry Kasparov's flank attacks, because in my opinion a great attacker is also a great defender in chess, because he always finds good tactics. So let's check out now the game and what happened in this brilliant opening line. So d4 here played by Garry Kasparov. We have knight to f6. The game started as a Grunfeld, but we have talked about recently that basically the Schlechter variation can come out also out of the Grunfeld defense. So here knight to c3, we have d5, basically now the Grunfeld, and now we have the 3-knight variation after bishop to g7 and h4. Here we have the move c6, and it's now the Schlechter variation setup, the Schlechter Slav with c6 d5, knight to f6, knight to c3, knight to f3. So the 3 knights variation is here, but with the move c6 we have the Slav defense, and with the move h4 we have now this early flank attack. So let's see now how Nepo handled the position, because Garry Kasparov plays now the move bishop to g5. The main idea of this move is of course to take bishop takes f6 and then to proceed here with the move h5, because if black castles now too early, then of course an idea could be here bishop to f6, bishop to f6, and now here h5, breaking through here already on the queen side, then trying maybe to get the queen somehow on the h file, and then maybe deliver checkmate on the h file. It's of course a rushed idea, not that black is worst here. Black has equalized the game already, because black has still the bishop pair on the board. Black can of course proceed with d takes c4, and then maybe with moves like c5 opening the position, because when you have the bishop pair, then you want to open the position for the bishop. So as I said, this is nothing wrong here for black, but this is the actual idea for white, how to make progress here on the flank. So here after move bishop to g5, Jan Nepomniachtchi plays actually the best line now of the Schlechter variation. He plays now d takes c4, because now there is a great square for the knight, although you're giving up a little bit your center, because here Garry Kasparov plays now the move e4, but now comes this very important move bishop to e6. We have talked about this idea also in the gameplay by Jan Nepomniachtchi against Anish Giri. Anish Giri proceeded here with the move b5 and left a little bit his center unprotected. Now with the move bishop to e6, you see d5 pawn breakthroughs are not possible. So black has a great control of the d5 and also has a great control of the e5, because if you play e5 like Garry Kasparov will play now, then of course the d5 is very well protected. The knight can come on d5. So here Garry Kasparov proceeded with this move e5. Jan Nepomniachtchi goes here knight to d5, but we can notice now that this knight is very well placed, that this knight is centralized. You see now if you take knight takes d5, then c takes d5 will happen, and black has solved now all of the position problems. Black is simply up a whole pawn, so that's why it's a completely winning game then for black. So what white cannot do here after a potential bishop to c4. This is the problem. Knight takes c3 will happen. You cannot take the pawn, then you have to take, and then you lose the bishop, because the move knight to c3 comes with a direct threat against the queen. So this is again simply losing for white. So after move knight to d5, here Garry Kasparov proceeded with the normal idea with the move h5. So you see how wild already the game is. The pawn structure is imbalanced, the pawn structure is asymmetrical. There is this flank attack on the king side. Now black can proceed here with the queen side attack with b5 b4. So as I said, in my opinion, it's simply not a boring opening, it's already a wild game all over the board. So after move h5, now Nepo continues normal development. You see how Nepo slows down the pace of the game. He's not worried about the flank attack because he hasn't castled into Garry Kasparov's attack. That's actually a great idea here by Nepo. He didn't castle so far. If you would have castled already, then of course with h takes g6, and then h takes g6, maybe queen to d2, and then this idea to play this fianchetto trades of bishops, bishop to h6, then bishop to g7, sneaking in with the queen on the h file, and then deliver checkmate on the h file. So it would be the natural idea of white here, but as I said, Nepo didn't castle into Garry Kasparov's attack. So far a great positional game by Jan Nepomniachtchi. So here h6 played by Garry Kasparov. Okay, he gets an extra tempo against the bishop, but now the pawn structure is clarified on the king side. No more h takes g6 possibilities are there, so no more trading of pieces on the h file, and actually black can now castle on the king side. That's a cool part, because the pawn structure is now static on the king side. No more pawn breakthroughs are possible, so now black can find great ways to secure the king. So in the continuation of the game here, knight to e4 played by Kasparov. We have now f6, we have a bishop to d2, and now b5. Finally fixing the pawn on c4, and we can notice now that black has this common 4 versus 2 queenside attack possibility. Black has this 4 versus 2 pawn majority on the queen side, so that's why that's the side that black should attack now in the continuation of the game. So after move b5, here Garry Kasparov plays the move a4. We have bishop to f5. Great move again by Nepomniachtchi. He wants to play e6, bishop to e7, and now finally castling, because as we said, there is no great way anymore for white to open the h file, because white has already played the h6 move. Now trading off the pieces, trading off the pawns on the h file is not possible. So now, as we said, castling is a great idea. So knight to g3, attacking the bishop, and again a great move by Nepomniachtchi. He doesn't react. He notices that basically many of his pawns are on light squares, so that's why giving up the light square bishop is not such a bad idea, because the light square bishop is not good, of course, when you have too many pawns on this light square. So that's why here after move knight to g3, here Nepo fixes simply the bishop with the move e6. We have knight to f5, we have e takes f5. G takes f5 would be suicide here, because there is always, I think, a great way by white to attack the light squares with queen to h5, or maybe with bishop to h5. So that's why you have to keep your light square diagonal locked. We have e takes f5, and now a takes b5 played by Garry Kasparov, but now c takes b5. Still, this pawn structure is very fixed. Still, this pawn structure is perfectly fine here. So in the continuation of the game, bishop to e2 played by Garry Kasparov. He's preparing also now to castle. We have bishop to e7, castling, and now a5. a5 is a great move, but a6 is probably a little bit more secure here. It's a little bit more compact, because you see now why. In the next move, after move castling in a5, Garry Kasparov plays now a very tricky move. You see how the beast from Baku can still attack. This was a game in 2017, but still, you know, Garry Kasparov knows always how to attack the positions. Although this is not the best Garry Kasparov maybe from the 90s, but still he knows how to attack. As I said, after move b3, here Nepo is already in serious trouble, because now after move c3, that's a forced line. Garry Kasparov has now this move, brilliant move, bishop to b5. Nepo takes, but now e6 is a possibility to get back your piece, and now the knight on d7 is pinned here. So after castling, here e takes d7, bishop to d7 is also an opportunity maybe to fix a little bit the position. In the next move, we'll simply take out this pawn on d2. But the problem is, I think now after casting, that this pawn on h6 is also a weakness. So I think in maybe 10 moves, black will always find a great way to simply take out the bishop, and then again black has here a 4 versus 2 majority on the king side. So it's really a dynamic game. You see the pawn structure was never symmetrical in this position. The pawn structure was always wild in this types of structure. So here Garry Kasparov, as we said, took with the pawn. This is already also a very annoying pawn. In the continuation we have knight to c3, now the fork by Nepo. So that's why I think maybe to take out with the bishop was more accurate here by Garry Kasparov. But okay, here knight to c3, we have bishop to c4, a check, we have king to h8, now Garry Kasparov takes, and now knight to e4. Look how Nepo found a great way to cement this knight on the centralized square here, on this very cool square on e4. This is where the knight should be in a chess game, really in the center of the board. Now it's a great piece. So here after move knight to e4, queen to e3, queen to d7 played by Nepo. We have knight to d2 attacking the knight, knight takes d2, queen to d2, and now bishop to b4. Now Nepo is trying to get somehow this attack against this weak h6 pawn. In the continuation we have a queen to d3, now queen to d6. Again Nepo is trying this dark square attacks. We have a rook to a2, we have rook to e8, rook to e2, now queen to f4, finally g3, and now Nepo takes out the pawn, and it's now a better game here for black. It's a better continuation because of this potential 4 versus 2 pawn majority attack on the king side. So really wild game, although this is an opposite card bishops middle game end game stage, but still of course slightly advantage here for black because of this pawn majority idea. So here after move king to g2, now f4 played by Nepo. You see he gets already his attack where he should attack, where he has of course the advantage with the move f4. We have rook to h1, queen to g5, we have rook takes e8, rook takes e8, and now after move bishop to f7. Maybe it's time for you to pause the video and find now a great move for Nepo. It was the winning move here for Jan Nepomniachtchi. Pause the video, try to see now the best tactic here. Okay, I hope you could find this move because it's a brilliant move. Here Nepo played a brilliant rook to e3. Really wild stuff. Let's see now what happens if you, for instance, retreat. If you don't take, this wasn't played in the game, then you get simply f3. That's a great move here. If you play king to g1 or king to f1, then you get simply rook to e1 and you lose the queen. So here in the continuation of the game, Kasparov took. We have f takes e3, but now queen to g3 happened. We have a king to f1, and now after move f3 in this position, Garry Kasparov resigned. So really great game, because if you play now queen to d2, then we're playing simply a queen to e1 and it's a checkmate. So here the king cannot escape because of this pawn, and you cannot cover everything because you cannot cover also the e2 square, you cannot cover also the g2 square. So great game here by Nepo, great game also by Garry Kasparov. We see that the Schlechter variation is playable for white and for black, so that's why I decided to cover more games in this opening line. I hope you don't mind, because as I said, in my opinion, it's not a boring opening. You see, especially after this move d takes c4, which Nepo played, when the pawn structure gets imbalanced, when the pawn structure gets asymmetrical, so you can be the judge of this opening. In my opinion, it's playable, as I said, for both sides. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Brilliant game by the two great Russians, by Jan Nepomniachtchi and Garry Kasparov. If you want to study the Slav defense more, please check out my Slav defense series from the beginning, with some other great defenses, with some other great lines of particular defenses. And if you have trouble maybe to play against black you can check out my hyper accelerated Dragon Sicilian defense series and my Nd2 Indian defense series as great responses against d4 and e4. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.